Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Bullony Basketball. You already know I'm here with Johnny. How's it going, Johnny?
Hey, nothing new. What was shaping up to be quite a boring week in the NBA landscape turned out to be nothing but a banger, all courtesy of yesterday and that James Harden trade, which we'll get into today. But really excited to dive into that and more. So just super excited to talk about it because there is a lot to discuss.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And if you'll notice, we have a special guest here down below. Our first guest of the season, actually. Speak Easy from Speak Easy Sports. How's it going, my man?
What up, though, man? I'm your first guest of the season.
Yes, sir. The first one of the season.
Damn, dude, that's I feel I feel a little special now, and we get to talk about the James Harden trade. This is awesome. This is amazing. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. No problem. And we're gonna dive into the James Harden trade. I think how we're gonna do this, we're gonna talk about every team a little bit involved. We're gonna start with the most notable one, which is the one with the big prize, the Brooklyn Nets. Obviously, getting James Harden, it's a big deal. I mean, now they have arguably the best big three talent-wise in the league. We're gonna see how the chemistry shapes up. But what are your guys' thoughts on their acquiring a James Harden and what it took to get him?
Yeah, go for it. Speak easy.
Man, definitely took a lot. Definitely takes a lot, and it took a lot. I mean, I can't say takes because it's past tense now, but I think when you're dealing with situations like this, and I know people like want to whine. I mean, actually, this is kind of different. They gave up a lot. 7 picks overall. Yeah, like 4 first-round picks and 4 or 3 pick swaps. Was that how it went? Correct? If I'm mistaken, or
Three firsts and 4 swaps.
yeah, so like definitely a lot. Obviously, a couple, Caris LeVert's gone now. Jared Allen, who I thought was a really good center for them, is gone. They lost a lot of the depth that they had, but a lot of these times you look at these trades, like in the long term, yes, you could say it's a loss. You don't really know what they're going to do with those draft picks, but in the right now, it's a win, bro. This is James Harden. Say what you want about like all the strip club stuff and like everything else, like this guy's MVP, averaging over like 30 points a game, at his peak. You know what I'm saying? And there's not many times throughout the NBA history, especially recently, where stuff like this happens and it doesn't work out. It kind of always does, right? Like maybe you could talk about Carmelo going to New York, but Melo's not the caliber of James Harden. You know what I'm saying? Like James Harden's an MVP guy, so it was the right move. I'm in the win now mode. If I'm the Nets, you got KD there. Those like it's generational talent. You have to do something. If I'm a Nets fan, I'm happy, bro. Like I know people bitch about the future and the picks and stuff like that, but like championships are so rare to come by. That I'm willing to sacrifice a couple years without one because I've been without one.
Yeah,
Great move for the Nets.
I like what you mentioned with the whole MVP caliber, right? We complained about what James Harden did in the offseason, and after a week in training camp, he comes in and drops 44 and 17 like it's light work.
Yeah.
We just don't see many players do that. Anytime you have the opportunity to add somebody like that, you go ahead and take advantage of it. Once again, we complain about draft picks, but we don't know what those are going to turn into. For the ones that are between 2021 and 2023, whether it's an actual pick or a swap, we still expect the Nets to be a competent team. So I'm not expecting those picks to necessarily be high-end picks. It's the ones later on that are going to most likely turn into the lottery picks. And so in order to fully evaluate the trade, we're probably going to have to wait until 2030 or so to see what these picks turn into, because they could turn into the greatest player of all time, or they could also turn into a bust. And so it's very hard to tell. But when you have the opportunity to add a player of this caliber, you just go ahead and do it. You let chemistry figure itself out. You've already had KD and James Harden play together before. According to Sean Marks, Kyrie Irving is excited to get back onto the court and play with these guys. So we'll see what it looks like. Whether or not their defense is going to be good, that's a completely different question. But this offense is going to be super hard to stop. Jared Allen is the big piece that I keep coming back to that they had to give up in order to make this deal. They were really just running him and DJ as their only bigs. DeAndre Jordan probably isn't going to give you more than 24 to 26 minutes a night at this point in his career. What they do between now and the buyout market is going to be interesting. Katie's probably going to start at the 4, DJ at the 5. Jeff Green right now is your backup 5, unless you trust Reggie Perry to get minutes or Claxton. So I expect them to kind of dive into the buyout market and see if they can get a big or somebody for a cheap second round pick, maybe a JaVale McGee. But listen, I'm excited to see what these guys look like when they get on the court together, and then we'll kind of be able to evaluate it more from there.
Yeah, something I will say, and I don't often like to quote Max Kellerman because sometimes he makes some pretty outlandish claims, but one thing that he always says is that whoever gets the best player in the trade, 99% of the time wins the trade. And I think it's pretty obvious James Harden's the best player in this trade. Um, so you got to look at it from that perspective. Of course, we don't really know what the chemistry is going to be like. I know some people have said like Kyrie's going to be back on the court, everything's going to be smooth. There's other people that have been saying like he has already problems with Steve Nash and he's distant from like Kevin Durant and stuff. So really, we don't know what's going on there. And I think we're gonna have to see how all three of them play together. And this might sound crazy, but if it's like still not working out, if it seems like everything's getting toxic, I wouldn't be surprised if they trade Kyrie Irving to try and get some of that depth back. You know, like they lost Caris LeVert, they lost Jared Allen, Kuru, so I think it's pretty underrated. Like they don't have the same depth that they had before. Me and Johnny, we were just talking like Jeff Green's what their backup five now, so like they kind of need something down low too. So I don't know. I mean, we'll see how it works. Obviously, a player like James Harden's not on the trade block that often, so you kind of have to make a move for it. And I think that the Nets had the right intention in going after him.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing too, like when you look at this trade and like, can you guys remember a time where a team like this like are put together and they haven't won? The Heat did it; they won championships. The Warriors did it; they won championships. Like it's going to happen. Like the NBA is a talent league; it's driven by the players. If you got Kevin Durant, you know, and mention too, like Kyrie Irving. Say what you want about his mental space too, and I'm totally agreeing with that. And like I've seen what happened with him in Boston. You know how they literally got worse. I don't know how, your guys' opinion on that when he came back that second year after they went to the Eastern Conference Finals. But he played with LeBron James. He can take a back seat to win a championship. You know what I'm saying he's done it, and it's something that it's going to work. I have no doubt in my mind this is going to work as long as everybody stays healthy. Maybe you get another big just to back up DeAndre Jordan because even that Warriors team, they weren't really big down low when they were winning and really dominant. You know, they just had a few guys and they weren't really even big names or necessarily had to be great guys. They kind of just played their role. You know, so if you're a Brooklyn Nets fan, you have to be excited. I don't see how you're disappointed in this one.
Yeah, I mean, those Golden State Warriors teams were playing Bogut and Ezeli and Dre at the five, so it can certainly be done. The only thing you have to worry about with the Nets, their two biggest opponents, I guess, if you will, in the East are most likely Philadelphia and Milwaukee. I'd assume that we're in agreement there. Both of those teams' best players are big guys. Whether or not you consider Giannis a big guy, he's 6'11" and a force down low, and Embiid is just a natural down on the block. So you have to figure out how to defend those. But like you said, the playoffs and championships are not about depth as much as they are about star power. Like I'm going to take a team that has 3 stars over a team that's got a star and a bunch of depth. Like you don't need to go 10 deep in the playoffs. You just need to play your best 8 and really your best 5 majority of the game, right? And when you put players like this on a team together, you're going to have older veterans who just want to win rings in the buyout market. So I'm sure that they can find ways to add some pieces of depth around these guys to still put together a formidable team.
Yeah, and one comparison I will draw to the Warriors is that a lot of their success came off. Yeah, they had way more talent than pretty much anybody in the league when they had Curry, Clay, Durant, Draymond, Iguodala. Um, but obviously they had great guys that were good off the ball. They had great ball movement. And now with the Nets, you see, guys like Harden, Kyrie, and Kevin Durant who are pretty much, score first, great isolation players, but will they have the same ball movement? So like we'll see. That's kind of one of the biggest reasons why it's like they didn't have too much front court depth and they could still be very successful. So I think it's the right move for the Nets going after James Harden. Um, Maybe a little bit earlier than people expected and a bit surprising, but you got to do what you got to do. But let's dive into what the Rockets got here. Victor Oladipo, Dante Exum, Rodions Kurucs. As we mentioned, the 3 Brooklyn first rounders, a Milwaukee first rounder, and then 4 Brooklyn first round swaps. What do you guys think of the return that they got for James Harden?
They got a lot of picks, right? And we figured that was going to happen. If Harden solely said he wanted to go to Brooklyn, then this is fine. But if he was really willing to go to Philadelphia, if I'm the Rockets, I would have taken a deal centered around Ben Simmons, Maxey, and a pick or two. Because you're getting a proven all-star. You're getting Maxey, who's a young guy that probably should have been picked higher than 20 and is already starting to show some of his upside. Because these picks, as we said, I mean, we're going to sound like a broken record, but we're going to keep saying it. We don't know what these picks are. These picks can turn into bust. They can turn into role players. They can turn into all-stars. They can turn into superstars. Like, there's just such a wide range of variety as to what they can be. And it all depends on where the pick lands and how deep that draft is. So there's a bunch of uncertainty around there. Where I want to hit on is them giving up LEVERT and a second-round pick to get Victor Oladipo on an expiring contract. I'm not a fan of that move. I think they should have just kept LEVERT. He's younger. He has more time left on his contract. He's cheaper right now. Whereas you're getting Oladipo on an expiring, and he's already made it clear that he really wants to go to Miami. And whether or not that's where he lands up, you're still getting a guy on an expiring that you're not sure he's going to stay with you long term. And so it's just puzzling to me that they would have made that move. So I'm kind of interested to see what you guys think on that Oladipo LEVERT kind of flip flop deal.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily like, now I'm looking like back at the trade. Like I know like where the guys landed. I don't really know how they fit in and where it happened, where Caris LEVERT ended up in Indiana. But I guess we'll get on that when we talk about the Pacers. But the Rocket, we're talking about the Pacers right now, or the Rockets. I'm sorry,
we're talking about the Rockets. So the
Rockets.
Nets.
Okay, yeah.
So the Nets flipped LEVERT to the Rockets, and then the Rockets in turn flipped LEVERT to the Pacers. But we're kind of talking about the Rockets haul and how you see Oladipo fitting.
Yeah, I just don't know what do they get back though? You know what I'm saying? Like what did they give Caris LEVERT for? Like what did they get from the Pacers? You know? Because I don't know.
Pretty much just Oladipo.
Oh yeah, that's right. What the hell I'm thinking? I'm sorry. I apologize, guys. I'm just looking at this trade. I'm trying to digest it and see like who went where, what now. I was just looking at the trade. I had like Twitter open, but I mean the Rockets. You're not going to win a championship. I mean, like Victor Oladipo's a nice piece. I think he's a great piece to add to John Wall and Boogie Cousins over there, and I mean now Christian Wood too. They're going to do well. They're going to continue to be a hot name and maybe a playoff team. You're not going to win championships. I don't think they're going to win any championships with that. But I mean, that's when those picks come in. Maybe you flip those into another guy. Maybe whatever you roll those picks into. It is what it is. I'm saying James Harden kind of forced their hand in this deal, and they had to do something because I feel like each day, the more he was like, being cancerous to the team and like just open in public about the trade, it kind of decreased his trade value. I'm kind of surprised that they got what they did for him because it was blatant that he wanted out of there. And at that point, your negotiating power is a little bit weaker. So I mean, kudos to them for getting what they got. They got a hell of a lot. I think Oladipo fits in nice with they already have a point guard. Obviously, they have their center. They have another big man, Christian Wood. It just depends, I guess, what they do with the picks. But I think they made out well because again, you could always look at all those picks they gave up for James Harden or got for James Harden. The same way they could use those picks to get another. I'm not gonna say another James Harden. There's not many James Hardens, but if another one does come along, they have those assets to give up for them.
I think the Rockets, the best way to put it is like they're preparing for the future, but they're not really going into a full rebuild. It's almost kind of like what the Thunder did last year. Now we'll see what the team looks like, in a year or two. But I think having Oladipo is massive. I think that people completely have slept on him now. They make it seem like the Pacers this year, it's all Sabonis, it's all Brogdon. But Oladipo was averaging 20 points a game, and he was shooting pretty well on high volume from three as well. So I think we got to consider that. And him and John Wall in a backcourt, I mean, you look at some of the guards today that literally just don't play defense. I mean, it's a completely different identity, I think, for the Rockets right now, that they're still going to be pretty competitive. And I think they're probably the most intriguing team in this deal as to see what's going to happen, because they could very well be, they could make a comeback. They could be in a middle tier playoff team. They also could just not work out, and then Oladipo could leave. In time, John Wall could leave or get traded when his contract expires. So I mean, I don't know. Getting Exum and Kurucs, I said Kurucs at the beginning, pretty underrated, and 8 picks. I mean, it's amazing, kind of where we've come, because remember the Kawhi Leonard trade when it was Kawhi and Danny Green for DeRozan and Jakob Poeltl, and I think the Spurs even got a pick, and then Kawhi brought them a championship. a player like that, but now we see James Harden, who is maybe a little bit below Kawhi or at least on that tier, and he just got traded for 8 picks, and they gave up a former NBA All NBA player for him, literally just a year or two ago. So I don't know. I think that the Rockets got quite a bit back. I think personally, this is a lot more than they could have got from other teams like the Sixers. We saw that deal you said with Ben Simmons, Tyrese Maxey, and a pick or two. I think that this is more than they could have got from that. To be honest.
I think that is a better trade, like in my opinion. Like if you want to win, I think Ben Simmons is a better piece for that. But I think the fact that Daryl Morey was there, I think I heard Stephen A. speak on it too. That the Fertitta, he was just not not cool with that, having his former All-Star and his former GM and president giving him the piece of the win with another organization. I think that's probably why that one didn't get pulled off. Because I think if you truly want to win now, if your goal is to win, you need, like we said, a James Harden or Kevin Durant. And I think Ben Simmons can be that or piece to that. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, the Rockets should be happy with what they got though, because again, they can roll those picks into something else.
Plus, with Houston taking this deal, whether or not you want to look at this as a business, at the end of the day, this is a business. And for the Rockets, they're staying under the tax line. And so as an owner, maybe there was some incentive to do that. And maybe there were some harsh feelings against Daryl Morey. So there's a lot of things that we could look into this and maybe piece things together, but we may never know the true answer as to what they did, as to what offers were on the table. I've seen rumors that they were asking for Simmons, Maxey, Tybalt, and a couple firsts, or that a talk with the Celtics would have revolved around Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, and multiple picks. It just doesn't seem like they were asking that much from Brooklyn at the end of the day, because they didn't get necessarily a great player in return. I'd also like to mention that I don't think the Rockets are done wheeling and dealing. I certainly don't expect PJ Tucker to be on the roster post-trade deadline. He's kind of made it clear that he's wanted to leave with James Harden, which I feel like the Nets would have been incentivized to find a way to get Tucker to their team, just because they were losing some depth in the front court, but obviously that didn't work out. And then Garrett, as to what you said with the Kawhi Leonard trade, I think what's important to note there is that Kawhi was coming off an injury, and we weren't sure if he was even going to play, and B, on an expiring, most likely not going to want to stay in Toronto. So they gave up an all-star, and they also gave up a pick to do it. But nowadays, I mean, you see Drew Holiday got flipped for 5 firsts. Paul George got flipped for 6. Harden got flipped for 8. That's just the cost to get a big guy in today's NBA. And until somebody's able to do it for something cheaper than that, I see this as the cost going forward to get somebody like this.
Yeah, Kawhi's value went up quite a bit after that Raptors championship too. Like it wasn't the same as it was at the time of that trade. His stock went way up after the Raptors series and the Warriors series.
Yeah, I don't know. Personally, for me, I think that getting a guy like Oladipo to be alongside Wall, it makes more sense than if Wall and Ben Simmons were playing together. At least that's my opinion. I just don't think that either of those guys will be great off the ball. It seems like Oladipo has been alongside Brogdon so far this year. So we'll see. But I mean, obviously Oladipo came from Indiana, and we're going to dive into what they got for him. Caris LeVert and a 2nd-round pick. What do you think Caris LeVert can do in Indiana?
I think. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead, man.
I think he's going to blossom. Listen, in minutes without KD on the floor, in minutes without Kyrie, in minutes without Dinwiddie, LeVert has just been dominating. Those couple games that KD missed due to protocols, and then Kyrie was doing whatever off the court, and LeVert was carrying this team, and he's capable of doing that. I think here you're going to see him kind of build a relationship, a pick and roll partner with Sabonis. You have another young-ish player in Malcolm Brogdon. You have some iteration of a big three, if you want to call it that. And I'm not sure that this big three is ready to compete for anything serious, because I don't see them as anything more than a 2nd-round team in the Eastern Conference. But listen, to flip Oladipo on an expiring who said he didn't want to be in Indiana for a guy of LeVert's caliber is highway robbery to me. I mean, take it and run. I don't know how they could have gone wrong in making this deal, and I think it's going to prove to be beneficial in the upcoming years.
Yeah, for me, it's kind of crazy because I'm really high on LeVert too. I think if you look at his numbers in the absence of like other stars on the floor, he excelled. I think maybe it was 2 years ago. He was dropping like for a minute before he got hurt, like dropping, I believe, up to like 20 points a game. I know he dropped almost 28 or 30 on my Pistons at one point too. So LeVert's definitely a guy who could blossom, especially if he is the guy. I think his contract is obviously a lot lower than Oladipo's and what Oladipo's probably will be if they end up like signing him or whatnot too. So I think that was a miss in the Rockets team, but I guess it depends like what they're trying to do and what they see in the guys. I think Caris LeVert is a great guy to have on your team. Kudos to the Pacers for landing that second round pick along with them though.
Yeah, and I like the fact you brought up he was averaging like about 20 points per game like a year or two ago.
Yeah.
So, something I will say is that I know a lot of people have made the idea that D'Angelo Russell becoming an All-Star in 2019, that's like the whole reason, in a sense, that they could sign, get KD and Kyrie, bring them in, right? But what if Caris LeVert was an All-Star instead? Then like how do things look? It could almost like change the landscape of probably 4 or 5 different teams, and maybe even this trade. So I think that getting Caris LeVert, I think he's someone that doesn't really get talked about a lot. And you even saw Damian Lillard say, I think he's going to take off in Indiana. He even witnessed firsthand last year when Portland was dealing with a ton of injuries, trying to get in the playoffs, and LeVert dropped almost a 40-point triple-double on him, like to try and like kill their hopes. And he was this close to hitting the game winner to, make him miss the playoffs. I think that Caris LeVert is an extremely good player. He was even the best player in that playoff series 2 years ago against Philly. So I think that it's a good move. Him alongside Brogdon, Sabonis, even Miles Turner. I think that the Pacers are doing pretty good.
Yeah, and I'm trying to pull up here right now.
Look at some numbers for LeVert.
I'm pulling up LeVert's per 36 numbers without Dinwiddie, KD, and Kyrie on the court. His per 36 numbers, he averages 28 points, 6 rebounds, and 9 assists, putting up 24 shots,
That's
2
insane,
steals,
bro.
half a block. So he's
Wow.
doing so much, and he's played 182 minutes without those guys, and he's averaging 28 points, 6 rebounds, and 9 assists per 36 minutes without them. So he's shown that he's able to I'm not going to say carry a team because it's, not in the context of necessarily games that matter a whole lot, but he's able to take the workload and not only score, but also distribute the ball and kind of act as that go-to guy, while understanding that he's going to get doubled and they're going to have defensive game plans to stop Caris LeVert himself. And so I think that bodes well for Indiana, because now you got 2 guys in the backcourt who can not only score but can also distribute the ball, and then you got a big down low in Sabonis.
Yeah, I'm looking at some game by game numbers from last year, and he dropped a 50 burger on Boston. Like, that's crazy. I don't even remember that.
A comeback game too. I think they were down like 15, like late in the fourth quarter or something like that.
Yeah, it's a huge win for the Pacers.
And just even earlier this year, I don't have it up right now. Just a couple of games ago with KD out, I know he put up a big game. Was it 28, 4, and 11 in a game without KD?
Really
he's
underrated,
capable
man.
of it. Actually, this is the one I was looking for. 43, 5, and 6.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Against Memphis, yeah.
Yeah. +8. The game before that, 22, 7, and 10. So he can put up numbers.
Yeah, and I think it just kind of makes sense. I mean, the Pacers, they get younger with the trade as well. And I think even for Oladipo, if you look at like the Rockets, like a lot of those players like Wall, Cousins, even Christian Wood to an extent, they all have something to prove. I think Oladipo does as well. So I think it just makes sense for all of them on the team. Even if it's only a 1-year little stop for Oladipo, like you said, going to Miami or whatever, then I think it's good for his value. I think it's also okay for the Rockets because then they'll be able to jumpstart the rebuild. But as for the Pacers, getting Caris LeVert, I think it's like you said, it's a W.
Yeah, let's kind of transition and talk about what the Cavs did, because I think this is might be the most underrated part of the whole deal as to what Cleveland was able to do. So they absorbed Taurean Prince's contract while also taking in Jarrett Allen. And in return, they gave up Dante Exum and Milwaukee's first-round pick, which is most likely going to be a late first-round pick, between 26 and 30. So for me, I mean, just to be able to get Jarrett Allen for a late first-round pick is incredible. If we look at his numbers here, just in the last 3 years with Brooklyn, his per 36 numbers, and I know it's tough for centers because most of the time they don't get to 36 minutes, but in 2018-19, 15 points, 12 boards. 19-20, 15 points, 13 boards. This year, 15 points, 14 boards. Like, he can do it. And I don't know how he fits alongside Andre Drummond, and I don't think Andre Drummond is the long-term answer for Cleveland. Whether or not they can flip him for some value now is I don't know. But anytime you have the chance to add a young big with the future of Jarrett Allen, and to do it with such a late first-round pick is something that you do without hesitation and figure out the rest later, which I think they're doing. Because now, I mean, look at the young core that Cleveland's starting to put together. Darius Garland, Colin Sexton, Isaac Okoro, Jarrett Allen. They just need one of these guys to really come out and become a star. Who that is, I'm not sure, but I think this Jarrett Allen move is certainly trending in the right direction. What do you guys think?
What a, you guys swear in here? I'm not gonna swear. What a freaking steal for the Cavaliers, dude. I love Jarrett Allen, dude. He's one of my favorite guys to watch play, and I love when guys try him at the rim too, because it never ends out good for him, man. It's reminiscent of my Fear the Throw days with the Pistons and Ben Wallace. And, I'm not gonna compare anybody to Ben Wallace. He's great in his own, and he's not some foot like Jarrett Allen is, but like what a freaking steal just to dip your finger in and come out with Jarrett Allen and Taurean Prince too, like. That was huge for them. My only question on this one is like, what are you doing with Andre Drummond at this point? It's kind of fun to maybe guess at this point like where he's going to land because there's no way they're holding on to him. But again, I don't know what his trade value is with that contract. I think he's around $30 million. I think Andre Drummond's at this year.
Yeah.
I think he's
after this year, right? Because he took out that player option.
Yeah, and this last year that too. So maybe he lands with a contender who really wants a big man. I mean, I don't know. But kudos to Cleveland for landing Jarrett Allen on that.
Yeah, I think Drummond's on a 1-year deal, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So you could find somebody. Yeah. So he's making $28 million this year. You got teams that have a big, trade exception where they can go out and make a move. Does Boston maybe contact Cleveland and see if they can make a deal for him? I mean, I know they have Thompson and Daniel Tice. I don't know if that's maybe a possibility. I don't think there's a huge line of suitors for him, but I think there's teams that are at least willing to give them a call and see what it's going to cost because Drummond is on an expiring. I don't think they're going to bring him back next year in Cleveland, considering they have Jarrett Allen. So it incentivizes Cleveland to move him, but then teams that are trading for him also have all the leverage because he is an unrestricted free agent. So I think that's going to be an interesting thing to monitor as we get towards the trade deadline.
Yeah, I think what you guys pretty much just touched on, there's more incentive to trade Andre Drummond now than there was a week ago, obviously. Pretty much any of their bigs that are, up at, like even Kevin Love, but I think that's going to be a much harder deal considering he's on contract for 3 more years or something, and his contract is extremely high considering how he's been performing. But I think that they got Jarrett Allen. I think he's the center that they're going to be looking at down the line. And in terms of Taurean Prince, having him and Osman, a small forward, I mean, it's not your, typical, like a Kevin Durant, Andre Iguodala type of thing from the Warriors a few years ago, but it's not bad, especially when you're being around, maybe Colin Sexton and Darius Garland. So personally, I think it's not a bad move for Cleveland.
I think too, they're starting to get some value off Drummond. Again, like the pick they gave up was like nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, and to land what they got, it was kudos to their GM. Who's Cleveland's GM? I was gonna know. It's okay. You don't have
Kobe
to.
Altman.
Yeah.
Okay. Kudos to him, man, because that was a hell of a like I said, just dip your little finger in there and just come out with Jarrett Allen and Taurean Prince. Like that was just nice.
Yeah, and I think these teams, like I said, most of them aren't done wheeling and dealing. So like the Rockets probably going to trade PJ Tucker at some point. Who knows what's up with Eric Gordon? The Pacers, I think the Pacers might be set with what they did because they were able to flip an expiring for LeVert and they're set there. The Cavs have Jarrett Allen, which most likely means that they'll find a way to move Andre Drummond, or at least that's what we think. And Brooklyn's roster is not set, whether or not it's via the trade market, maybe flipping that second round pick they got from Cleveland for a big like JaVale McGee, or dipping into the buyout market. So I think there's still a lot of moves to be made surrounding these 4 teams, but this is kind of this is what got it started, and now we got to see where it ends.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it'll take some time before we know who officially wins this trade. But we're gonna move on now to other stuff that happened other than the trade. Kristaps Porzingis came back from injury the other day against the Hornets. What did you guys think of his debut for the season, and what do you guys think of him and Luka, what they can accomplish this year?
I'll let you start on this one.
All right, thanks. So contrary to what many would think, actually up to yesterday when KP made his debut, the Mavs had a top 5 defense in the league. That was what was really haunting them last year, because they had the top offense in NBA history last year. So to add KP to that is obviously going to help, because he is a rim protector in itself. He's tall, good shooter, second shot creator, because this team really does lack shot creators outside of Luka. KP's a tough shot maker, extends the floor. So there's a lot to like about him. Him and Luka were starting to really build a bond last year. You get that European connection. I think Maxi Kleber is now able to kind of fit in with the second unit. I'm kind of interested to see where they go with the starting lineup. You have Luka, you have KP, they're starting for sure. I'd like to think Josh Richardson's a starter. I'd like to think Dorian Finney-Smith is a starter. Then I'm assuming you start Tim Hardaway Jr., but you could also start Kleber at the 4. You could start Finney-Smith at the 3, Richardson at the 2, and take Hardaway off the bench for some scoring. So there's a lot that Carlisle can do. He could even start KP at the 4 if he wanted to. So I think that's what I'm going to be monitoring here in the next week or so, is to see what Carlisle does with the starting lineup and rotations, because he could get really crafty.
Yeah, go ahead.
This one, I mean, obviously I love KP. I love when you can get a 7-footer who shoots threes. I think it's just absolutely amazing for like your team. He's one of those guys too. Like again, he's long and he'll play defense as well. He's not just like limited to that, that stretching the floor on offense. Kudos to, I mean, not kudos to anyone. I don't know where the hell I was going with that one, but I think I wanted to make this statement too, is like, and I said it earlier, with the generational talent, you kind of like put all your chips in, because you don't really come across guys like this all the time. And I'm really high on Luka. I think Luka is like, he's going to be the next guy. He's going to be the next face of the league. Maybe not because he's European. I mean, I don't know, but he's a baller, man. And I think the Mavs got to push some chips in on this a little bit, man. Like surround him with some pieces. Like this is his prime. You got another piece like KP, who, let's admit, he's not always healthy. He never really seems to stay healthy. So like, let's get him some pieces to win with here, man. I want to see the Mavs make some moves now too, because you got KP healthy. Like take some strain off of him. Maybe they make a move for Andre Drummond. I don't know. I don't know if he fits that team well, but I want to see the Mavs surround. I want to get a third piece, or at least something, man, for my man Luka down there. I think they got a generational talent, and you got to push your chips in it and win when you can. That window's small sometimes. You never know with injuries and whatnot. So that's what I'm hoping for KP and Luka. Off topic, but I mean KP is going to be KP.
Yeah, and I mean, I will say, they don't have the typical third option on their team. Like I know people have been saying, for all these contenders, make a trade for Bradley Beal or so on. But I mean, they have a ton of dudes, probably 3 through like 9 on their team can be the third option on any given night. And usually at least 2 or 3 of those guys, at least on every single night, score at least 10 points, which, I mean, that makes it hard for any defense to guard. And like you said, I mean, their offense was already the best statistically ever last season. And I
did not know that.
Yeah, and so like all these players on their team, like, yeah, you're gonna have to guard Luka, you're gonna have to guard Porzingis, but then it's like one night it's Tim Hardaway and Maxi Kleber. The next night it's Josh Richardson and like Dorian Finney-Smith. Like it just makes it too hard for a defense to scheme for those role players, because they're more inclined to give them open shots as opposed to Luka or Kristaps Porzingis. What I will say about their defense is that adding guys like James Johnson and Josh Richardson definitely helps. So I think that they're going to be a better team this year than they were last season, as people expected. Still not completely sold on the championship contender aspect. Don't know how they really compare with, like the LA teams, for example. But, I mean, we'll see.
So Willie Cauley-Stein has started the last 4 games for the Mavericks, and they're perfect 4-0 in those games. So I'm under the assumption that they're going to start KP at the 4, which means that you're going to probably then start Finney-Smith with Josh Richardson, and it looks like Carlisle's comfortable bringing Hardaway off the bench with that shot creation, him, Brunson, Trey Burke, Kleba, names like that. I, too, am not sold on them as championship contenders this year, but I don't think many came into this year believing that either. What I am sold on is that Luka can most certainly be the best player on a championship team. I have no doubts about that, and that's what's hard to find because, to me, there's only 7 or 8 guys max that could be the best player on a championship team. And that's kind of how I would define superstar, as a player that can be that go-to guy on a championship team. And to me, Luka is one of those guys. And KP is viable to be a second player there. They do need a third guy, though, if they ever want to win a championship.
Yeah, and I think you gotta do it, man. Like, maybe not. I don't know, man. That window's small. You gotta do something. Sidebar too. I just have to ask. I wanted to ask earlier, and I apologize if I'm throwing everything off topic. But do you think the Lakers make a move after Brooklyn? Do you think they make a move for a third piece? Do they stay put?
I don't know. I don't know if they will. I mean, you got to think they also had a massive offseason, getting like the top 6 man of the year candidates. They got Gasol. So I don't know if they'll make a move, but I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest.
I don't think if they make a move, it's going to be very low key. So they replaced Rondo with Schroeder. They replaced Danny Green with Wesley Matthews. They have Montrezl Harrell, who they got. Gasol's now starting at center over JaVale McGee. Talen Horton-Tucker is actually looking like a rotational piece now. So I don't think that they need to. I think that they can run it back and be fine. I don't know if it's fair to say that they haven't necessarily been trying this year, but they're still clearly the best team in the West, and they've kind of been keeping their foot on the brake. They haven't necessarily played the toughest of schedules, but they've still been able to kind of just walk their way through the regular season. And I think that's what it's going to be. It's going to be something that they kind of just turn up come postseason time.
I wait for this postseason, man. KD versus Giannis in the Eastern Conference, man. That's going to be so fun to watch.
Yeah. One thing I will say, though, back on the Mavs is that I know you said they're going to need a better third option to win a championship. But if you think about even that Lakers team last year, they didn't really have a set third option. I mean, it seemed like it was maybe Rondo for most of the playoffs, but he also had a lot of games where he was not doing much. And then there was like Dwight would step up, or Kentavious Caldwell-Pope would step up. So I don't know. Kuzma had the one game. I don't know. I think that they can. Maybe it's just not ideal, but I think it is possible.
I don't know. My counter to that would be that Luka, A, is not on LeBron's level, and B, the disparity between AD and KP is pretty large. That I don't know if Luka and KP themselves are capable of carrying most of that load. Like they're able to win a playoff series on their own, but when you get to the heavy hitters that have legit big threes or a big two, a duo with 2 top 10 or 12 players in the league, that's where they're going to have their hurdles to climb. And I'm not sold on them being able to do it at this point.
Yeah, I'm just not even sold on KP being there for it. You know, like hardly ever is. As much as I love to watch him play and do his thing, he's not really a healthy body.
Yeah, injuries are a big deal right now with Porzingis and his recent history. Another player that's had some recent history with injuries did get hurt the other day. They said it's not going to be too serious, so I'm not going to jump to conclusions yet about that. But Gordon Hayward for the Charlotte Hornets has been having an insane resurgence season. I mean, just the other day, I made a tweet that at the point like, I know it was only 10 games, might seem stupid, but he was averaging 50, 40, 90 shooting on over 22 points a game. And the Hornets in their last 4 before that were 4-0. But just like, what do you guys think about Gordon Hayward this season? And like, once he gets back from his hip strain thing, do you think that he's going to continue to, prove everyone that was hating wrong?
Go for it.
I think, I don't know if it's so much him. I mean, he's balling right now, dude. I haven't got to watch many of their games. I think that he's benefiting. I mean, and I haven't really watched these games. I don't know why, too, because LaMelo's on the team. But you guys to tell me, is he benefiting from like the past first play of LaMelo? Like, is that what it is? Because this dude is having a resurgence. Like, these numbers I'm looking at are pretty freaking crazy, and I'm happy for Gordon Hayward, man. I watched live that scary ass injury he had with the Celtics, and then trash talk started from them. It's hard enough to battle back through injury, but then you got people talking shit on you about the contract you signed before you were hurt. So it's like, it's so weird when people talk like retrospective like that. Oh, it was a bad sign because he got, like, no one's gonna foresee that guy having a freak injury like that, I'm be honest with you guys, man. I'm half black. I love to see the white guys ball, bro. I think it's so awesome when they're out there doing their thing, man. Because I know it's with an NBA, you're looking at LeBron and stuff like that. It's like when Gordon Hayward and like Luke are out there. It's I think it's dope to see those guys, elevate their skill to a level where they're top tier like that. So kudos to Gordon Hayward. Shout out to him for resurging his career. And I gotta ask you guys though, is that the pass first play? Like, what's going on there?
I'd say a lot of it is more so the fact that he's almost the de facto number one on this team. So he's able to put up shots. So this year he's averaging the most field goal attempts of his career, which is then in turn corresponding to the most points per game in his career. But it also helps that he's shooting at such ridiculous clips. Like, this is the best free throw percentage thus far of his career. This is the second best 3-point percentage in his career. So by just being the best player on the team, you get the treatment where you just put up the most shots. We've seen Devontae Graham decline so much where he's not putting up as many shots. You mentioned LaMelo being somebody that is looking to pass just as much score. And that's certainly helping. And you're playing, Bismack Biyombo's starting, so he's not stealing any shots from you. When Bridges is in the game, he's not stealing shots from you. So I think it's just the fact that the ball moves, and there's only so many players on this team that are going to shoot the ball, that you're not competing with Marcus Smart and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Kemba Walker to get shots up. You're competing with Terry Rozier is really your main competitor, and so shots are just going to fall in your lap because of that.
Former teammate too, so they probably gel well as well.
Yeah. What I will say is that his injury, most people that suffer lower body, lower leg injuries, they might be affected if they have heavy athleticism, and that's what they rely on. Gordon Hayward, he can get up, of course, but he's never really relied on that, and he's also kind of lived around like the mid-range area in the 3-point shot. So I was never one to jump to a conclusion saying, he's done, he's not going to be the same. The contract this offseason did seem a bit extreme considering what we had recently seen from him. But I will say, I've always been a Gordon Hayward fan, and it's good to see that he's, back doing his thing. And like you said, he's shooting at an all-time clip. The Hornets right now, it's still very early, but right now they're like right in the middle. I think there's like a really good chance that they make at least the play-in, and they might even make the playoffs. I think some teams like the Raptors and the Wizards that people thought were going to be, higher up there, like they've struggled so far, and we'll see what the jury holds out for them for the rest of the season. They might even get in the top 8 if, those teams can't figure it out. But I don't know. I personally just like to see Gordon Hayward, on the resurgence coming back up.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you always want to root for the player coming back from injury. Like that terrible injury for Paul George too. Like, you hate to see a player with that caliber go down with such a horrific injury, that anytime they come back and at least show some signs of their old self, it's just like fulfilling as a viewer to watch that. And so I'm always rooting for guys that come back from injuries like that.
Yeah. And we're going to move on now to close our show with the daily picks. As you guys know, we do a pick for one game every day in the week, and we'll see who we have winning. So, in terms of this Friday, January 15th, we have the Mavericks and the Bucks. Luka against Giannis. Who do you guys taking this game? Have taken this game?
I'll go with Luka. Luka and the Mavs.
The Bucks aren't really having the greatest season. I know they've been kicking the shit out of my Pistons, and I'm sorry if you weren't swearing, but they've been beating the hell out of us. But I'm gonna go with Luka and the Mavs. I think they got some energy with them too. To with KP coming back.
Nah, you're good. And I'm gonna go personally with the Bucks. They are at home, and I think they started off really bad. I think they've kind of gotten a little bit better recently. I'm gonna go with Milwaukee in this one though. On the 16th, we have the Magic and the Nets. Orlando versus Brooklyn. Could be a James Harden sighting. Probably not. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't read into if Harden has to clear any protocols or quarantine for X amount of days before he gets to actually play with Brooklyn. But as long as KD's on the floor, I'm going to take Brooklyn.
I'm gonna do upside. I'm gonna go with the Magic. They kind of surprised me this year with a lot of the games and the play that I've seen from them. It's not. I just don't think we're gonna see James Harden. I think because of COVID, there may be like a 14-day window of some type of quarantine with the travel and whatnot. I mean, I have absolutely no clue, but it feels like sometimes these Nets take off games. It's weird.
I'm gonna go with Brooklyn on this one. I think the Magic have kind of struggled a little bit since Markelle Fultz got hurt. So I'm gonna take Brooklyn.
Sucks so much for him, man.
Yeah, it just sucks. I mean, it's horrible, man. But we're gonna continue to the Cavaliers and Wizards on the 17th. Who do you guys have?
I like Cleveland in this game. I know they're dealing with injuries themselves, but Westbrook is out for 4 to 6 weeks, it looks like. So, Bryant, I like Cleveland.
I'm gonna echo that. I think Cleveland's been surprisingly pretty solid this year. I think we spoke on like the young core and whatnot earlier. I gotta go with Cleveland that one. Easy.
I'm gonna go with the Cavaliers. Yeah, I mean, like you guys said, Westbrook's not gonna be playing. I'm gonna just take Cleveland. And ironically, we've never had this before. Literally the same game the next day, on January 18th. We randomly do this in case you guys are new to the show. We randomly pick all these games, and it just so happened to pick the Cavaliers and Wizards again. So who do you guys have winning on the 18th? You had the same thing or no?
No, I like the Wizards to at least win one of these. Whether or not I get it right in terms of 17th and 18th, that I'm not sure, but I like the Wizards here. I think Bradley Beal's good enough to come out and not let his team lose 2 in a row to Cleveland.
I'm gonna stick with the Cavs. The Wizards are 3-8, and honestly, guys, I want to apologize for picking the Magic earlier too. Give me the Nets on that one too.
All right. And I'm gonna go with the Cavs as well. I think I don't know. I just personally think the Wizards are so skeptical. I mean, they lost back to back to the Bulls. They've lost to a lot of teams that they probably should have beat. But then again, they did beat the Suns, who were at the top of the standings for so long. So who knows? They could surprise us. But on to the 19th, we have the Pelicans and the Nuggets. Who do you guys have?
I like Jokic. Jokic and the Nuggets to beat a Pelicans team that is not very good. No spacing offensively, and they just haven't been able to get things clicking. So I like Denver.
Hey, man, I'm really disappointed, man. I thought the Pelicans were going to surge this year. I thought that Lonzo and Zion, and Brandon Ingram, like there's so many pieces there that I thought Zoe was going to just mesh well, with his passing ability, but it just wasn't the case. Hasn't been the case. I go with the Nugs. It's fun to say.
I'm gonna take Denver on this one, and I know Lonzo Ball has had a good history against Jamal Murray and stopping him, but I'm gonna be bold here and say that Jamal Murray scores 40 points in this game. He's gonna go for 40. As for the 20th, we have the Celtics and the 76ers. Good old rivalry. Who do you guys have?
This might be the best. This is probably the best game here in our slate of picks. I like the way that Brad Stevens schemes against a guy like Joel Embiid, and now you have Tristan Thompson, somebody that's big enough to guard Joel Embiid. So I look for the coaching matchup to go the Celtics' way, and Tatum and Brown to be enough in order to take down the Sixers.
Again, I'll probably echo that. I think that there's a coaching. Well, I guess the 76ers have new coaches here too, Doc Rivers. So we'll see. As a fun matchup to watch. That seems like it is a rivalry in the East that you're in tune for in the playoff season and whatnot. But I think the Celtics just have more pieces to close out the game with between Jason Tatum and Brown and whatnot.
I'm going to go with the 76ers. I mean, last year in the playoffs, the Celtics pretty much swept them without Ben Simmons. Last year in the season with Ben Simmons, the Sixers swept the Celtics. So, I don't know. I'm going to go with Philly. I think that they've been playing really well. And I'm really not sold on Boston right now. I think that their depth is still a bit skeptical. They still have some players out for the COVID, stuff. So I'm going to take Philly in this one. I think that they'll get the job done. And as for our last game, we have the New Orleans Pelicans again going to Utah to play Donovan Mitchell and the Jazz. Who do you guys have?
I like the Pelicans to lose 2 in a row here, so I'm going to go with Utah. Same thing, kind of just Utah more so fundamentally defensively sound. Got that. Gobert down low. Mitchell can come out and score. Too much for the Pelicans to handle, so I'm going to take Utah.
I think this is definitely a winnable game for the Pelicans. But again, they just haven't got their feet under them as far as like what the hell they're doing as a team. Defensively, I like the keeping games low scoring. I know Utah kind of the same way. You know what? Give me the Pelicans. I want to see some life out of them.
Johnny got all the Pelicans fans' hopes up. He's like, I'll take the Pelicans to lose 2 in a row. But I'm gonna have to agree with you there. I'm gonna go with Utah, and I think Donovan Mitchell will have a really good game as well. But yeah, that's pretty much gonna close out all of our main topics for the show. Glad we got to talk about the James Harden trade, which is the big thing. But thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm going to put Speakeasy's link down below in the description so you guys can check him out on social media. And I think that's going to do it for the show. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we're out. Peace.